And resource for Maui residents impacted by the fires. The county launched a new website, mauirecovers.org. It updates maps of Lahaina that show off-limit areas in red and those safe to access in green. Right now, only parcels 5D and 5H are safe to enter. Those include businesses at Lahaina Gateway on the north side of Keawe Street and businesses in the Walgreens lot.
Some of these phases do take time, but we are going to be moving in a forward direction and continue to try to bring closure for the community and allow people to return home. We will also bring in structural engineers and building inspectors to assess the stability of some of the remaining structures to then again ensure the safety of access for the public.
Jen Boniza is on Maui and spoke with the EPA about their progress.
Joe, the EPA is tasked with clearing all of the hazardous debris from Ground Zero in Lahaina. But after over a week being there, they still have more than 1,700 properties that still need to be processed. I'm told it's going to be a long road ahead.
These are the type of containers that, the burnt containers will be repackaged into.
It's a painstaking process, the collection and removal of dangerous household items like batteries, propane tanks, pesticides, and other potentially toxic materials. But it's an essential part of the process and the first phase of the debris removal plan.
There's a lot of concern about exposures to residents as they come back into their parcels. And
any idea how long it may take you to complete this?
That's a tough question. We've been in the field for just over a week. As I mentioned, we've completed over 350 properties.
And more than 2,000 need to be swept. I'm told that this could take up to a year and more than $1 billion until Lahaina is completely cleared.
I want to first just have you tell me a little bit about what you lost on August 8th.
Pretty much everything. All the income in the future. I lost 3 boats, 3 vehicles, 6 motorcycles, everything I'd built up in 40 years out here in the business. But if you look around Lahaina, it's melted. Everything melted. We need fuel. We need the fuel dock opened up. It'd be nice to rebuild the harbor bigger and better than it was, being the smallest, most congested harbor in the state of Hawaii. We really need to get some tourism back here. This west side of Maui is shut down right now, and we hope to be back in business. We'd love to be able to get fuel. We need fuel to operate. We need people. We need to get some people back to West Maui.
I got the sense from some of the folks that were there that it seemed like maybe the Coast Guard and the DLNR were kind of pointing the finger at each other about who's going to take the next lead on moving things forward. Is that correct?
It needs to happen a lot quicker than it is. Right now, we're a day away from being a month, and nothing's really happened. They're still looking for people. Well, we need to get tourism back up and running over here because we don't do sugarcane or pineapple anymore. We have tourism, and that's it.
And obviously a really difficult, like I said, a difficult discussion to have when so many people are still in pain. But you're one of those people. You've lost pretty much everything, correct? But we have to move forward, right?
Yeah, it's time to start rolling, get the ball moving. And this would be a good time to expand our harbor and make it bigger. Lots of things could change right now.
Namely, just really quickly, one last question before we go. You'd like to at least get that fuel dock. Do you think that's feasible in the next few months, the fuel dock set back up so you guys can fuel up? Otherwise, you're going to Maui, correct?
Yeah, but fuel dock didn't burn up. A couple of hoses burned up, but the fuel dock is intact. And if they open up at least the north side of the fuel dock, we would be able to get fuel once they get power to it.
We're talking with the commander of the incident management team in charge of the effort to restore Lahaina Harbor. U.S. Coast Guard Captain Asia Kirksey joins us live from the Coast Guard Command Center at Sand Island. There are some residents who are frustrated. They wonder why the cleanup process still hasn't started or even been announced. What is your answer to that?
We understand that it's so frustrating for vessel owners and operators who clearly want access to their vessels and they want access to Lahaina Harbor. They're frustrated with the timeline and some uncertainty. The Coast Guard and the Unified Command here, which consists of the State Department of Health and the Department of Land and Natural Resources Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation, has actually established a harbor coordination group that's made up of all of those members of the Unified Command. The harbor coordination group is working directly with vessel owners and operators One, to determine the number of impacted vessels in the harbor and around the harbor, also to determine the environmental risk associated with those vessels, but most importantly, to provide consistent and clear communications to vessel owners. We've gotten many requests from vessel owners to access their vessels, to assess the damage to their vessels or otherwise access them. Where access to the vessel requires landside access, we're working very closely with the County of Maui because landside access is still limited. Where vessel access requires entry into the harbor itself, unfortunately, all of the different hazards inside the harbor still make it difficult for us to permit that access. However, vessel owners who have vessels outside the harbor, we have been able to permit access to those vessels on a case-by-case basis where it is safe and appropriate to do so, and the Unified Command will continue to receive those requests and work with the Harbor Coordination Group to ensure that the concerns of the community are heard.
Okay, Captain, we know that it needs to be done the right way and it needs to be done safely. At the same time, there's a lot of urgency for these business owners and residents. Do you have a timeline? How long do you expect this to take?
It's still very early in the response for us to be able to predict a timeline, and I know that's also frustrating. But what I can say is that with a response this complex, it's probably more frustrating for us to try to predict a timeline and to have that target move. The Unified Command with the Department of Health, the Department of Land and Natural Resources, we've come together to support the County of Maui, and we've been tasked with assessing, mitigating, making plans for ultimately the removal of those impacted vessels, the vessels that are sunken, that are displaced, to remove the pollution, to remove the contaminants, the hazardous materials, and also the incident-generated debris in the harbor, all so that we can support the restoration of Lahaina Harbor and the surrounding waters. And we're completely committed to that.
We're speaking with Captain Asia Kirksey from the U.S. Coast Guard. One more question. There was concern about whether there might be plans to open Mala boat ramp at any point in the near future.
The safety zone that's been established around Lahaina Harbor and Mala boat ramp, it was initially established to keep the public safe. It was also established to support the County of Maui's landside response operations. That safety zone remains in place out 200 yards, and we continue to work very closely with the County of Maui to determine how we can adjust that safety zone so that we can allow the public access to the wharf.
For us as operators that lost boats and lost our homes, we need to figure out what's our timeline. When can we go back to work?
It would be helpful to give us some idea, some kind of timeline on what we can expect so that we can make plans accordingly.
Is it feasible to operate out of somewhere else? But what's holding you up right now from doing that?
Yes, it is feasible. It's just a matter of getting permission, more or less, to operate from a different location in a temporary basis. It would just be something that would just temporary until Lahaina Harbor was operable again, but it would be a matter of us saving our business or not.
Well, Ma'alaya and Kaanapali are still in operation. Lahaina Harbor and Mala Wharf, they definitely need to be in operation ASAP.
Right now, if you need fuel, where do you have to go?
I would have to jug it out or drive 40 miles to Ma'alaya Harbor.
I believe that one of the things that you were hoping for is the Mala Wharf to open, the boat ramp there, or the fuel dock, the fuel and loading dock at Lahaina Harbor. Those are still, in your mind, possibly operational. Is there a reason that those couldn't be opened sooner rather than later?
Mala Wharf should be open today. I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't be. Nothing happened to the boat ramp. It's in perfect shape. They've cleared the road. We just saw cars driving up and down that road. The Lahaina fuel dock did not explode. The hoses might need replacement, but they need power.
One last question before we go, Dan, is the future of Lahaina Harbor. We know it was a very crowded, overused facility. How important is it that you folks have a conversation in the rebuilding of that, a really important historic harbor?
Seems like we don't have a say in anything. We were hoping we will in the future, but Lahaina You know, it's a historical town. They never wanted to expand or change anything because they didn't want to ruin the history. Well, the history's pretty much burned up. It's time to expand the harbor. If they ever had any thoughts on doing it, now would be the good time to do it.
I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial. We don't want this to become a cleared space where then, yes, people from overseas just come and decide they're going to take it. The state will take it and preserve it first.
But most importantly, I would like to see a long-term moratorium specifically on sale of lands if it's not going to benefit local people for other local people. I've asked the Attorney General to not allow transactions. It is difficult based on the national laws. I would caution people that it's going to be a very long time before any growth or housing can be built. So I've instructed the Attorney General to work toward a moratorium on any transactions. There's some legal challenges there. We're going to push right through those and make sure that people don't lose their land here in Hawaii. That is central. I've been speaking to leaders all across our state, and that's important to everyone. What that means is we're going to make sure that there are no transactions that take advantage of our people, and we're going to give you some definitive answers by Friday about how hard I can lock that down. That doesn't mean we don't want people to come and invest in Hawaii and travel to Hawaii away from the impact zone. We'll talk about that in a moment. What it means is people are right now traumatized. Please don't approach them with an offer to buy land. Please don't approach their families to tell them that they're going to be better off if they make a deal, because we're not going to allow it. And then between myself and I'm sure the mayor, we're not going to allow people to get permits. Forgive me for speaking for mayor, but I know he's a tough guy. We're not going to allow people to take advantage. And it's going to be a very significant amount of time anyway in the recovery before building could be done. So don't make the mistake of testing us in that space, please. In order to prevent people from taking advantage and acting in a predatory way toward our local people, I've asked the Attorney General to not allow transactions. She's working out the legality of that in this emergency phase. It is difficult based on the national laws, but we do have a lot of capacity. First and foremost, a clear message from me that I will not be authorizing any building permits or capacity on this land if there's predatory behavior. I view predatory behavior as illegal in this circumstance, and we will prosecute people to the full extent of the law if they misrepresent what they're doing, which is to try to take land from people who are vulnerable and facing severe economic consequences. That's one. Two, we have had, yes, reports of people who are not actually even in the realty industry reaching out, and that is unacceptable to us. So, forgive me. So what we're doing about that is we reached out to the Realtors Association to help support us and prevent anyone from coming into this market and, I guess, participating in transactions. But most importantly, I would like to see a long-term moratorium specifically on sale of lands if it's not going to benefit local people for other local people. We will bring resources here from outside. There always is going to be investment in Hawaii, but we don't want to see land bought up. And so what I also will do is put together a group of people who are interested in financially supporting all of our recovery mission, not to buy land up and to hold it, but simply to secure where we are as a community. And I do believe that there are both affluent people and regular working people who are contributing to that kind of a mission, to keep the land in local people's hands. I'd say this, we don't even yet know what the philosophy of the Maui people who have been affected will be as to what Lahaina should look like. That is a decision that has to be made as a community. So we've begun to put together individuals that would like to contribute to that discussion. As you heard earlier, Mayor Bisson is going to be out actually having talk story with people in the community. It's very important for us as first a county and then as a state to know what should happen with Lahaina, which has been in many ways one of the picos of our state for generations. We, though, in my office, will work to block any of those kind of predatory transactions. That's very important to us. So I've actually reached out to our Attorney General to explore options to do a moratorium on any sales of properties that have been damaged or destroyed. Moreover, I would caution people that it's going to be a very long time before any growth or housing can be built, and so you will be pretty poorly informed if you try to steal land from our people and then build here. In discussions last night amongst colleagues of mine, people I trust, we're hopeful to create a memorial for the people in the state of Hawaii in this site.
I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to people who were lost. But we don't want this to become a cleared space where then, yes, people from overseas just come and decide they're going to take it. The state will take it and preserve it first.
I would caution people that it's going to be a very long time before any growth or housing can be built